Today, one of the most promising COVID-19 treatments hits a potential bump in the road. Plus, how a multi-billion-dollar company got millions of dollars in relief meant for smaller businesses. And the U.S. has officially lost more jobs in the past 5 weeks than it's gained in the past 11 years. I'm MacKenzie Sigalos, and this is CNBC After Hours, where we bring you the day's biggest money stories. No jargon, all business. Let's take a look at today's scoreboard. A relatively flat day for Wall Street. Of the three major indexes, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq finished marginally negative, while the Dow Jones, a weighted average of 30 large American companies, managed to finish slightly higher. All right, and now for three of today's biggest developments in the global coronavirus pandemic. First, some news on a potential antiviral treatment for COVID-19 called remdesivir. Now, in one clinical trial in China, the drug failed. It didn't help speed up patients' recovery or prevent them from dying, according to a report in the Financial Times. A few important points here. Gilead, the biotech company that makes the drug, told CNBC that this specific trial was cut short because not enough people enrolled. In fact, they say the data from the trial, which was published today on the World Health Organization's website before being removed, was posted by mistake and doesn't accurately represent the study. CNBC's Jim Cramer pointed out that there are other American remdesivir trials taking place that will be more reliable than the one conducted by the Chinese. The U.S. National Institute of Health is currently running one of those trials and will have those results in late May. However, today's disappointing trial sent Gilead shares sliding. The stock closed down more than 4%. And President Trump opposes Georgia's plans to begin reopening the state economy tomorrow. At a press conference last night, Trump said he, quote, totally disagrees with Governor Brian Kemp's decision to allow businesses like tattoo parlors, nail salons, barbershops, and massage therapy spas to start opening their doors to the public tomorrow. White House health advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci has said the coronavirus outbreak will rebound if social distancing measures are relaxed too soon. He had advised Governor Kemp against reopening businesses in Georgia. Also, governors pushed back on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's proposal that states should seek bankruptcy protection if they run out of money while fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Yesterday, McConnell said instead of providing states with federal relief funds, he would prefer them declare bankruptcy. Now, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, whose state has been hit hardest by the outbreak, called McConnell's idea dumb. And Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, called it complete nonsense. Earlier this week, Cuomo and Hogan asked Congress for an additional $500 billion to help the states offset their lost revenue and massive costs associated with the crisis. The House of Representatives is expected to pass a $484 billion stimulus package tonight. That bill doesn't provide any funding to state and local governments. Okay, let's get to our sound check. Here's a roundup of the day's biggest action and what the top newsmakers and business leaders had to say on CNBC's airwaves today.
So we need to think about this program. We want people who need it to be able to be processed quickly, of course, and the unprecedented demand is putting strains on a system that, quite frankly, we knew was not up to par. Many of these computer systems at the state level are quite antiquated.
Capitalism as we know it will likely be changed forever. The country is moving slowly to the left. Taxes have to go up. Quickly if Biden wins, slowly if Trump wins, but taxes have to go up.
What's striking, I think, about the comments in Georgia is they don't talk about that data. They don't talk about in specific terms where they are and what's driving that assessment. And so I think they're making a real mistake. I think the other side of this looks like a very, very different America for the next 2 or 3 years. There is not going to be a return. Years. Yes.
I'm definitely not opening this Friday. I don't have a calendar date for opening. After reviewing the guidelines, the OSHA guidelines that we would be required to follow to even start this process of opening, it's overwhelming.
As we went into the month of April and millions of Americans are sheltering at home and they've heard from public health officials that it's best to try to minimize your time in physical store locations, we saw a huge spike in digital comps. For the quarter, we're saying we're up over 100%, but in April alone, our digital growth is over 275%. And we've just seen Cyber Monday occur almost every day, except the volume is twice the size that we've normally seen on even a Cyber Monday peak.
All right, today's biggest story is brought to you by the letter P. Everyone is talking about the PPP, which stands for the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, that's a section of the giant $2 trillion CARES Act focused on giving loans to America's small businesses. The $350 billion Congress allocated to PPP ran out last week, leaving many business owners without the funds they need to survive the forced closures. But some of the companies that were able to get their hands on government loans, they're not exactly the mom and pop shops the program was designed to help. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been claimed by larger public companies. For example, Shake Shack received $10 million via PPP loan. This company said this week that it would return the money. Now Congress is working on giving the PPP more money. And today, the Treasury Department issued guidance saying it is, quote, unlikely that public companies could access this new round of PPP loans. But for that first $350 billion, that money has already been dispersed. $4 million from that pot was given to a company owned by a billionaire. CNBC's wealth editor Robert Frank has the details.
The PPP program, of course, was designed to help small businesses retain their workers, but there are dozens of publicly traded companies and multi-billion-dollar companies and even billionaire-owned companies that received this government funding. And one of them is a Phoenix-based company called Nikola. Now, this is sort of the trucking version of Tesla. They make hydrogen cell tractor-trailer trucks, and they also do some electric products as well. It is owned by a billionaire named Trevor Milton. Now, this is a company, when you think about these small and medium-sized companies that needed cash, this is a company that just did a merger with a publicly traded company that valued Nikola at $3.3 billion. So that made Trevor Milton, the founder, a billionaire based on his stock. They received $4.1 million in PPP funds to retain their staff. So you would wonder, why does a $3.3 billion company need $4 million from the government to keep its staff? The company tells me that this was kind of bridge money to see them through to the deal, which is expected to close in the next month or two. And that just because they have a big valuation doesn't mean they have that much cash on hand. But added to the bad optics here is the fact that Trevor Milton just bought a $32 million ranch in Utah. And so people said, well, this is a guy that can afford a $32 million house. Why can't he afford to pay his workers through this period? And why does he need government money? While we're hearing small mom and pops, restaurants, these small companies that were supposed to get the money, many of them did not. We're hearing these tales of two experiences with PPP, whereas the small mom and pops did not get funding, or very few of them did, whereas a lot of the larger ones did get the money. And one of the reasons for that is the banks, because they were so quick to get this money out, took care of their private banking customers, so those are wealthy individuals, and their existing commercial banking customers, which are all these large to medium-sized companies. And then it seems like they got priority, whereas the small mom and pops that didn't have big or existing relationships with the bank were basically told to wait at the end of the line if there was money left. And it turns out there wasn't money left for a lot of those small mom and pops.
All right, we'll leave you with a numbers round. Let's kick it off with 26.5 million. Over the past 5 weeks, 26.5 million Americans have filed for unemployment as the coronavirus lockdown wreaks havoc on the American economy. That's about 16% of the entire workforce. All 22.4 million job gains since the Great Recession in 2009 have been wiped out over the course of these 5 weeks. Next, 600. Those 22.5 million people filing for unemployment will receive $600 a week on top of the usual amount that's paid out by the individual states under the federal coronavirus relief bill. But one unanticipated consequence of the beefed up program, some workers can make more money on unemployment than they can at their jobs. CNBC.com has a story of one salon owner in Washington state whose employees were upset to hear she had secured a PPP loan and could bring them all back on payroll because that meant they could no longer collect unemployment. And to leave you on a lighter note, let's finish with 10. The 2020 NFL Draft kicks off tonight virtually. Stage or no stage, experts expect this year's draft to be the most bet on ever, as gamblers are experiencing a current live sports drought. Online sports betting company FanDuel says it's taken in 10 times the number of bets and total money for this year's draft compared to last year. Stay up to date in real time with CNBC. Later today, the House votes on another $484 billion stimulus package, including about $300 billion of additional funding for small businesses. Get the latest on that crucial congressional vote and catch every development in this historic battle against coronavirus and the unprecedented economic fallout by going to CNBC.com and downloading the CNBC app. That's it for CNBC After Hours. From our home office to yours, good night and stay healthy. We'll be here again next week. See you then.